Okay. So the magical image, it will put a spell on you. Woo! How'd you like the title? Isn't that cute?
Nice.
Right.
Did any of you read the write-up that referred to like mystery schools and initiates and adepts? You know, this, I remember, some of you may remember Paul talking about the inscription above the entrance to the Temple of Apollo at Delphi, the mystery school, Temet Nosce, know thyself. Actually, that's the Latin translation of the original Greek, which I can't pronounce. But it makes it kind of intriguing, doesn't it? You get this image of this initiate entering the cave, inspired to find his highest potential by overcoming the demons within, guided by the priest or the priestess, and emerging on the other side of the cave into the light. Sounds like this exciting adventure movie starring your favorite action hero, eh? I used to think that the mystery school term know thyself was supposed to be this inspirational encouragement, you know, welcoming the candidate to find one's higher self, the best you. I didn't realize it was a warning. They should have used more complete grammar, something like, know thyself. Are you sure you want to confront everything about yourself that really makes you unworthy? Yeah, for those of you who are Star Wars fans, this kind of relates to Yoda's response to Luke Skywalker when he enters the cave that was strong with the dark side of the Force. And Luke asked, what's in there? Yoda said, only what you bring with you. And then as Luke walks in, he draws his lightsaber and Yoda shakes his head thinking, oh no, he still doesn't get it. So I just want to make sure I'm giving you this warning before you choose to learn and practice this technique of the magical image, because it will put a spell on you that has you face everything about yourself that is unworthy of being in the presence of your higher self. And I'm sorry, I know that wasn't inspirational. It's just the truth. And I will be very honest with you about how I found it. So it's a meditation technique that Paul taught, something he learned about from writings of Diane Fortune, Manly Palmer Hall, many others considered to be initiates in ancient wisdom traditions. And Mur and I chose to actively practice this when we married and still do today. Simply stated, I would meditate by holding in my mind an image of Mur sitting before me. And sometimes we would actually be sitting right in front of one another, facing one another. And I would superimpose over Mur this image of the goddess, you know, as if I know what the goddess looks and feels like. Asking the goddess, help me see the priestess in Mur. And she would do the same thing with me, see the priest in me. And yeah, if you must know, we would also do this when we're having sex. But I've only got 30 minutes here, so no, I'm not going into more detail about that during this talk. You'd have to pay me a whole lot of money for that. So it's like, what do we mean by this priestess in Mur, the priest in me? I'm using these words, priestess and goddess, to try to open my mind to archetypes that will help me see beyond my limited perceptions. But that's part of the problem, because these archetypes are beyond my perception. That's the mystery of it. How do I focus on something that I don't know or understand? It's kind of a paradox and a conundrum to those of us who are like mere mortals. And while I want to see the priestess in Mur, the idea is that if I can recognize this higher quality in her, that will help me to treat her with the ultimate respect and love, making me a better person and helping to actualize it in her. Very well-meaning. What a good guy that makes me. But can you see the flawed logic in this? It means I do not believe that Mur, as she actually is, deserves that ultimate respect and love. So I have to project some fantasy on her to get me to act differently. What a jerk that makes me. Like, I want to be honest and specific about how this ends up working. I had thought that this practice of the magical image meditation would result in me connecting with the best me that I can be. It would give me this meditative spiritual high. But that's not exactly how it worked. It resulted in revealing to me the thoughts and beliefs and behaviors and habits that I have that are the most selfish, self-absorbed, uncaring person trying to wrap himself in spiritual practices. Now, to actually become the best me takes a whole nother step of being honest about what a jerk I was being, which also includes feeling the embarrassment and the regret and doing the hard work and being willing to and doing the hard work of changing. You see, the magical image that I project on Myrrh isn't putting a spell on her, it's putting a spell on me that requires me to see what I don't like about myself. In fact, I remember, I didn't think this would happen, but it's in part because she's watching. I remember more than once actually looking into Myrrh's eyes as we're doing this together, and I could see she really means this. She's not just projecting some image like I'm doing in hope of seeing it. She really believes this about me. Can you imagine how small I felt at moments like that? So you sure you want me to go on with this? You see, I had expectations about what Myrrh would be like when she reached this level of enlightenment. You know, my image of the perfect partner for me. Are y'all familiar with Paul's description of religion as the act of man making God in his own image? It's kind of a twist on the biblical writing that God made man in his own image. We each have an image of the perfection that we're seeking, and we project that expectation on others, even with the best intentions of trying to help them grow spiritually. I was actually imposing my own image of perfection on Myrrh in hopes that she would become that for me, which kind of infers I did not think that she was perfect. And she wasn't. She was and is something so much better than perfect. So let's look at this idea of perfection. Have any of you seen the movie My Fair Lady? So it's based on a play. It's a comedy based on a play written by George Bernard Shaw, which in turn was based on the Greek myth of Pygmalion. So in brief, in the myth, Pygmalion was a king and a sculptor who created and fell in love with a statue which represented his ideal of perfection. Pygmalion had all kinds of problems with women. The problem is the statue or an ideal is cold and hard, not warm and alive. So it could not love him back. He prayed to Aphrodite, goddess of love, for a bride who would be the living likeness of his ideal perfection. So in my magical image meditation, I was essentially praying to the goddess Aphrodite, give me a bride who would be the living likeness of my ideal partner. I wasn't asking for Myrrh as she is. I was so fixated on my ideal, even though I wasn't really even clear what that ideal was. I couldn't see who was alive right in front of me, really loving me as I am, which I couldn't do. And I got to tell you, this is a true story. Before I even met Myrrh, my mother knew her, and she told me, there's a girl in Virginia Beach who is just perfect for you. It's true. I think it took me 10 years of avoiding a romantic relationship with Myrrh just so I could prove my mother wrong. You can't get more Freudian or ironic than that. And on our first wedding anniversary, Mer and I created new vows, and we asked Michael Blay as our minister to lead us through a renewed commitment ceremony, romantic and spiritual at the same time. Michael read the vows, and he gave me this look and said, Stephen, are you really sure you want to do this? Do you understand what you're committing to? You know, I'm rolling my eyes. Michael, get out. He said, by giving her your life, you think your dreams will somehow merge together into some idyllic harmony so you both achieve all your aspirations. And I'm listening and thinking, yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. He said, what's actually going to happen is you are going to change your dreams and ideals and desires so that what she wants is what you'll want. And I'm listening to him and I just responded, yeah, Michael, come on, I get the point, get on with it. I had no idea what he was talking about. You see, because the real Mer, someone who has a life of her own, isn't going to fit into my cold, hard image of perfection. So Mer would inevitably fall off my pedestal over and over again. But I was taught, spiritual thing to do is it's not her fault she fell off the pedestal. It is, after all, my pedestal, not hers. So it was my job to keep putting her back on my pedestal and envisioning her as my priestess. How noble of me, right? How it makes me feel good that I can do that. What a good guy that I am because of that. Again, let's be honest about what this is. I used this spiritual idea of lifting her back up in my mind. When I was, so that I could treat her with love and respect, when I was the one who was judging her as not really being worthy of that love and respect, without my help of lifting her back up. Facing this unloving jerk in myself was not an inspirational spiritual high. It was embarrassing and painful. And you hear me talking about it now. And it's kind of embarrassing to admit this about myself in public, but that's not the painful. Feeling of embarrassment I'm talking about. When I'm alone by myself and I reflect on something that I did that my own conscience tells me is nasty or selfish or uncaring toward her, that is a moment of reckoning that's hard to face. So maybe it's too late to avoid getting heavy, but I'll give you an example, maybe a little intimate example. But so when we were getting dressed at night to go to bed, so Mer would take off her socks and they'd turn inside out, and take off her shirt and it would turn inside out, and just throw it right down by the side of the bed. Now, I had been taught, if you don't make a mess, you don't have to clean it up. So, we turn out the light, close our eyes, and I would not be able to stop thinking about all those clothes by the side of the bed that I would have to clean up in the morning. And look, it wasn't just the clothes. I mean, there was stuff all over the house that was out of place. There's just messes, mess after mess. And you know why she leaves them there? It's because she knows I'll clean them up. That's the purpose. So for a long time, my role was just to tolerate this foible of hers, knowing that when she finally evolved into her full potential, she wouldn't do that anymore. If any of you have seen the movie As Good as It Gets, yeah, it's kind of like that. One day, I was away from home. I'm traveling a lot, sitting in a hotel room after doing a lecture. I was bored. I'd finished my work, nothing on TV. So I looked around the room for something I could straighten up. Makes me feel good to clean things up. Of course, there was nothing out of place. When I get out of bed, even in a hotel room, it takes me 2 seconds to make the bed. I'm so efficient that I don't move at night so I don't mess the bed up. And I'm looking around the room and I'm hit by an image of what my life would be like without her. No, not the image that some of you just got, you know, everything in place, orderly, not messy. No, that's not the image. The image was empty, sterile, no life, no fun. This wasn't about the stuff in the room. This was a whole different level of emptiness that was frightening. And I remember the next week, I'm home, sitting on our couch, and I saw one of Mer's socks that, you know, was just kind of left somewhere on the floor. And I thought, there's Mer. And everything that was about Mer was right there in that little sock. I don't even know how to tell you what it was. And that's just one little sock. After 34 years, there's so many socks. Have any of you seen the movie Good Will Hunting? The title is actually a play on words. Will, who's more brilliant than everyone he meets, is actually hunting for the goodwill whom people will love because he doesn't feel worthy of being loved because he's the jerk. He really was a jerk. In order to stay out of jail, he's required to work with a counselor, Robin Williams. And Robin tells Will a story about his own deceased wife. He says, she used to fart in her sleep. Yeah, once she farted so loud, she woke the dog up. She asked me, was that you? I said, yeah, I didn't have the heart to tell her it was her. And you know, it's all these years later. And those are the things I remember. All those little peccadillos that nobody else knew about her that made her my wife. He said, this girl you talk about, Will, let me tell you, she's not perfect, and neither are you. The question is whether you're perfect for each other. And so I hear this, whether you're perfect for each other, what does that mean? Robert Johnson wrote a book called We, Understanding the Psychology of Romantic Loves, based on Carl Jung's teachings about the myth of Tristan and Isolde. So again, short story. A commoner, Tristan, falls in love with the queen, Isolde, which symbolically is a fantasy. Commoners and queens, that not real, they don't get together. Commoner falls in love with an ideal and it can't work out. I won't go into the details, read the story. But later, Tristan marries Isolde of the White Hands, a commoner. Notice in the way the story is written, she's got the same name, but she's a commoner. But the tragedy is that he could never experience with her the same perfect love he felt with the queen, the fantasy. See, that's the tragedy. If you're more in love with finding some ideal than with the real person, you won't be able to experience the mystery of what that person really is like, warts and farts and all, which is so much more than you could ever imagine. It'll surprise you. I think that, you know, most people, when they watch the movie My Fair Lady, they think it's about Henry Higgins, the educated man, transforming Eliza Doolittle from a common flower girl into a princess. But when you listen to the last two scenes and songs, you see two things happening. You see that Eliza actually transformed herself and became completely independent. She says, I can get along without you, Henry Higgins. Don't you think I couldn't? To which he replies, you've never wondered whether I can get along without you. And in the last song, you see the professor in this very clumsy way, just beginning to grasp. He's not in love with the princess Eliza, his ideal, but with something about her that he can't even describe to himself. He goes, damn, 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 damn. I've grown accustomed to her face. She almost makes the day begin. I've grown accustomed to the tune she whistles night and noon. Her smiles, her frowns, her ups, her downs are second nature to me now. Like breathing out and breathing in. See, notice an ideal doesn't have ups and downs, just ups. But there's just something about the whole experience of a real person that's so much more than any ideal you can imagine. And at this point, he still wrestles with himself. He goes, I was serenely independent and content before we met. Surely I can always be that way again. Yet I've grown accustomed to her look, accustomed to her voice, accustomed to her face. He wants to justify this old way of thinking about her, but there's just something about the real Eliza that's put a spell on him that he doesn't understand. He can't escape, and he's just beginning to realize he will have to change in the way he treats her. And it's kind of clumsy how he does it. But later he says, but I'm so used to hear her say, good morning every day. Her joys, her woes, her highs, her lows are second nature to me now. Like breathing out, breathing in. I've grown accustomed to the trace of something in the air, accustomed to her face. He's just beginning to realize that trying to fit her into his ideal, he himself has changed in a way he didn't know how to do. He's fallen in love with like something in the air about her, smiles and frowns and ups and downs and joys and woes and highs and lows, this like mystery thing he doesn't understand. And so, the allure of this magical image as a meditation where you're going to experience this high together with a partner, it's really just the beginning of getting to know yourself. Ideally, here I am talking about ideals again, the practice is turn it into a way that you live every day, not just when you have your eyes closed, and in everything that you do and with every person that you meet. Man, I'm just barely getting started on that one. You treat the other person as if that person is this living embodiment, not of your perfection, but of something so much more than perfect, you can't even comprehend it. I remember, Paul doing lectures about the mystery school. He would say, the real purpose of these mystery schools is character development. And people would kind of give this response, wow, that's deep. Now, tell us more stories about the real mysteries. We wanted to be entertained by these inspiring stories. It's not sexy. It's not really fun to do the hard work of character development. So, after all this time, what this magical image meditation technique has taught me is this. I really want to do this every day for the rest of my life. I need to be willing to look at all the selfish, self-centered thoughts, judgments, and behaviors and habits I have that I know are not worthy of my best self. Oh yeah, I still have them. I used to think I'd go through all this stuff and get to the point where I transcended. Oh no, they're there. I still have my ideals too. I try not to focus or believe either one of those. If I can keep seeing through them and acting differently, then maybe I can experience, it just makes me laugh. And I think that's the real Mert, who is so much more than perfect. And, I got to say, when I first outlined what I was going to share with you about this, I thought, oh, that's the closing line, the real Mert, that's so much more than perfect. But the more I thought about it, it occurred to me, if I can keep doing this with Mert, maybe after a few more years, I may be able to do it with myself. All my ups and downs and joys and woes and highs and lows and all the jerk that I can be. Maybe I can get myself back up on that pedestal on which she's been able to hold me for so many years. I don't know. I think that one may take me another lifetime to accomplish that. So if you still think you want to curse yourself with this magical image practice, I wish you luck walking through your doorway of the mysteries to know thyself. Just be sure to bring a good sense of humor with you. You're going to need it. Thank you. That tells you everything I know about Myrrh.